Good evening. Welcome to the Pearl Report. I'm Diana Lin. Under an integrated education policy in local schools, students with special education needs such as autism and dyslexia are placed in the same classes as mainstream students. But as producer Alex Solin finds, many schools don't want these SEN students because they might lower overall academic performance. And some schools misuse subsidies earmarked for these pupils, while some parents say mainstream schools don't live up to their promises to help special needs kids.
When Angela Chiu's son Marco turned 2, she took him to an interview at a kindergarten.
They say, "What is this?" Showed him a picture. "What is this?" Marco, not interesting.
4 kindergartens rejected him.
They won't accept him because he won't talk. So he refers him to the Child Assessment Center to have an evaluation.
The whole process took a year, during which Angela sent Marco to a private kindergarten.
The level of speech is only 1 year, 8 months, which is very behind, and autism symptoms.
The government then found him a place in a kindergarten for children with special educational needs, or SEN. It gave him speech therapy and a psychologist to help him with social skills. Marco is now in primary 2 in a government Band 3 school in Tin Shui Wai.
At the very beginning, he was so nervous all the time because he did not know how to get along with the others.
Okay, let's pick. You can put it down a bit. Okay. This. You put it down. Does he on his message out of the room?
So the teacher gives him extra attention.
He started to use it to our school environment, and he learned a lot of social skills and emotional control skills.
Schools sometimes put SEN pupils in the front rows.
Pointer, okay, so you point to the word using the pointer, okay?
Okay.
And there are after-school activities to improve his English language skills.
I come to school by car.
I think I choosing correctly. The first day of primary 2, the teacher called me, say, anything that I need to concentrate on Marco.
The government started placing SEN children in local schools in 1997.
In the past, we have special ed provisions in the mainstream school. For example, the special class for slow learners. But we found that there may be labeling effect for the students. Therefore, after 1997, we start the tryout of the integration program in Hong Kong mainstream schools.
You can color the picture just like Marco, okay?
Schools encourage teachers to take additional courses in helping pupils with SEN.
There are a lot of resources and training programs, and our school principal strongly advises all of our teachers to attend that courses.
To pay for the additional costs of teaching SEN children, integrated education schools like Marco's get an annual subsidy of up to 1.5 million Hong Kong dollars. It gets another 160,000 for speech therapy, and the Community Care Fund offers 460,000 annually for 3 years. More than 20% of the students in Marco's school have special educational needs, but many schools are reluctant to enroll too many SEN students.
If you search these schools' websites, you seldom find mention of support for SEN students and special learning disabilities. They're worried many SEN students' parents would choose their schools and pull down their academic performance.
And mainstream parents often prefer to send their children elsewhere.
Some parents may complain, right, about the safety of the children. Also, that the teaching schedule may be delayed. The performance of children may adversely affected.
With Hong Kong's falling birth rate, the Education Bureau has been closing down primary schools with low student numbers.
The EDB will go to the school and then count the students. If you still can't get more students, then, well, the EDB may ask you to close the school.
SEN students in this environment really has no place. The Band 1 schools don't need them. The Band 2 schools don't want them. The Band 3 schools welcome them because they're short of student supply,
resulting in SEN students enrolling in large numbers in the weakest schools.
The facility is very old. The quality of students that we take in isn't high. We don't get applicants.
After graduating with a fine arts degree, Carol was hired by a Band 3 school last summer as a teaching assistant to help minority children who struggle with Chinese.
It ended up I was in charge of SEN students.
Even though she's never been trained to handle children with learning disabilities.
The student I met in the first day of my work is a high degree of autism. And she's frightened. I feel like I'm talking with a person in outer space.
One of 5 SEN children in the class.
I don't think I'm good for him because I'm not professional. I did mention this problem to the teacher and she said you only have to control him, not to scream, not to disrupt the lesson, and make sure he won't hurt other students. This is the first priority.
Carol says the school hired 5 teaching assistants, but the others mostly did office work.
The other one, she talked with the mainland parents on phone or after school, but because she can't speak fluent Cantonese, and she can't go in the classroom. But after working in this school, I feel so sick. Where did the money go? The resources are wrongly allocated.
Carol quit after finding a job as an arts teacher. When integrated education was introduced in 1997, the number of SEN primary school students was 13,720. It's now over 17,000. In 2003, the Education Bureau introduced a new funding system. Psychologists assess SEN students to fit into 3 tiers of severity. A school with integrated education gets $13,400 annually for each Tier 2 student and $26,800 for each Tier 3 child. Fernando Chung heads LegCo's subcommittee on integrated education.
Problem with this 3-tier funding system is the lack of transparency. Are the schools utilizing this money? We don't even know how many students belong to Tier 1, 2, 3. We've asked EDB about that. A question as simple as that cannot be answered.
When probed by the LegCo Finance Committee, the Education Bureau replied,
"The level of support of students with SEN may be adjusted from time to time according to the performance of the students. Hence, we are unable to provide the distribution of students in each tier."
The funding is allocated to school and the purposes is up to the school discretion.
Raising concerns that funding is used for other than SEN purposes.
Of course, in the report, right, or in the meeting between parents and teachers, okay, we will always say that, right, we hire extra teacher or teaching assistant, but indeed, yeah, most of the time they allocate to other duties.
Especially when a school is threatened with closure.
They can use the fundings to buy better resources and renovate their campus and hope to get more students. That may help them to survive.
Liaquat was born in Hong Kong to parents from Pakistan. Now aged 10, he can communicate in Cantonese, but he's behind his peers in every academic subject.
Which is the biggest bone? Bone's bigger.
When Liaquat was in primary 1, he was assessed to have a mild intellectual disability, placing him in Tier 1.
He's blank, he doesn't know anything.
Sakina says she couldn't get special help for her Tier 1 child.
They say the education department doesn't have any resources for the kids like your kids.
So the school could not cope.
Principal called me. Your child is very naughty. He cannot control himself. He's running in the corridor. Please pick him up from school right away and bring him back home.
Teaching staff in a school may not have training in dealing with SEN students. Just for one SEN student in a classroom may extract all the energy of the teachers.
The government requires 15% of teachers in integrated education schools to be trained in helping SEN students. But the mandatory course is only 30 hours.
It's just an introduction. The needs of the ADHD, the special learning disabilities, the dyslexia, every kind is unique and has their own different sets of needs. The result is you would have many of these SEN students simply sitting there.
Constant pressure from Liakat's school led Sakina to quit her job.
I don't think there is any kind of employer going to employ me because of this.
With Sakina's consent, a government assessment centre transferred Liakat in primary 2 to a school for intellectually disabled children, where he says he feels depressed and isolated. Can he go back to a normal school?
They say we can try our best maybe to put in a upper waiting list grade, but we cannot promise anything. I don't know, they just give me a skills, or day by day his age is going up, but he knows nothing. English is not good, Chinese is not good, so what will be his future?
Coming up after the break, is the long waiting time for assessment making children lag behind?
I cried as I talked to the principal. Maybe they feared I'd commit suicide.
A law to secure the rights of SEN students.
Just set explicitly, what each school need.
That and more when we return.
我哋邀請一班女士們將自己嘅沐浴乳同 Dove 比較，呢啲試紙用嚟模擬肌膚表層，有啲沐浴乳會沖走試紙保護層。諗一諗，如果係你嘅肌膚，又會點樣呢 ？Dove 與眾不同，升級配方沐浴乳，蘊含深層滋養成分嘅 Nutrient Moisture 精華液，帶嚟全新美肌體驗。Dove 真正呵護，值得你作出改變。
Welcome back to the Per Report. In Hong Kong, most children with special education needs are placed in mainstream schools. The government provides guidelines for the schools, but there's no legislation, as in some countries, to protect the rights of SEN kids. Would they fare better with laws?
At the age of 2, while attending a mainstream kindergarten, Snowy Choi's son Kindred was diagnosed with autism and speech delay at the Child Assessment Centre. At age 6, when he was about to enter primary school, he was assessed again by an educational psychologist.
The
evaluation found my son could study in a mainstream school, but he'd need professional support.
Kindred started showing signs of dyslexia.
Starting in primary school, children had to do frequent dictations and memorize vocabulary. When they can't do it, emotional problems arise.
The educational psychologist said further assessment had to wait.
He said my son was still small. We could wait and see how it'd go. Wait until the school complains about his behavior first.
Snowy arranged for a private assessment, which was rejected by the school principal.
The school said the report must be done by an educational psychologist. I cried as I talked to the principal. He took the initiative to talk to the educational psychologist. Maybe they feared I'd commit suicide.
After complaining, the assessment was fast-tracked.
I now realize it was due to scarce resources that they used some excuse to delay the assessment.
From being on the waiting list to actually seeing an educational psychologist and confirming the assessment, it would take 2 to 4 years. In the process, the psychologist misses many developmental aspects, so it's harder to change and improve the kid's condition.
In 2014, a LegCo subcommittee report on integrated education urged the government
to take practicable steps to shorten the waiting time for assessment of SEN students.
In the chief executive's policy address this year, Leung Chun-ying said there will be more educational psychologists, 1 for every 4 local schools. When Kindred was finally assessed, his school made some adjustments.
For example, he might be given less dictation or told some content earlier. They offered to read test questions to him.
The Education Bureau encourages schools to adjust the curriculum to suit the abilities of SEN students.
Actually, only a few schools can do that. Those schools enroll many SEN students and make a lot of effort.
The LegCo subcommittee has also recommended Hong Kong introduce an education law.
We reviewed a lot of laws in other countries.
Taiwan, where 90% of SEN students are in mainstream schools, has a law to give them minimum rights.
All SEN students are taught and dealt with by SEN teachers in the resource class.
In 1975, the United States passed a law stating that every child with special educational needs has to have an individualized education program.
The IEP becomes a contract that provides for a very strong basis for everybody to stick to that multidisciplinary assessment together with the parents and the students to serve that SEN students.
A report by the Subcommittee for Integrated Education shows that not more than 5% of Hong Kong's SEN students get individual education plans. The Education Bureau only requires schools to provide IEPs for Tier 3 students, the most severe cases. For extra incentive, a school with only 1 Tier 3 child still gets enough to help 6 Tier 3 SEN children, over 160,000 Hong Kong dollars.
So all the school will try to get that for the resources of the school, well, because we only need to submit 1 IEP. Each IEP, it is tailor-made for the Tier 3 SEN students, and then all the teachers who is teaching these students need to be involved. And therefore the IEP may be very costly, but they have to maintain some level to get that funding, so they only submit 1 IEP.
Chan believes only legislation can help ensure that all Tier 3 students receive the IEP. For now, the Education Bureau says
EDB's professional officers conduct regular school visits to monitor and provide consultation for the schools.
to ensure their SEN kids get better treatment, some parents choose costly private schools, like the Ao Pui School in Hong Ham. It charges 20,000 Hong Kong dollars a month and specializes in teaching autistic children using applied behavioral therapy.
Now you are sitting nicely, Tyler. Tyler, come up. Tyler? Yeah. I want you to write. I know how to write. I want you to write kitchen.
Not again. What does that mean? I don't want to write kitchen again.
Tyler, who's been diagnosed with autism, transferred here in August from a mainstream school.
I remember the first day, he was so excited. He was so curious about everything.
This is your cubby. So every day you have to put your backpack here. Do that?
But we have some difficulty when we started to work with him.
Hey Tyler, come, it's all right. We all take turns and it's all right to lose. Tyler, tell me, how do you feel?
Tyler didn't react very well in the situation like when he is not the winner. So after that, we settled the goal for him, how to help him to tolerate working with a challenging task, even something he doesn't know.
So he will not get upset when he needs to ask for help.
Hey Tyler, that was nice. You know what, if you don't know the answer, you can ask your friend to help.
And learning to cooperate with other students.
And phone, and phone, and phone.
All of this became Tyler's individual education plan.
We met his parents and then we explain to them what are the goals that we're going to work on in the following 3 months. Within a few weeks, you can see that he improved, he makes changes, he started to get used to the routine more quickly.
He sits down every night now and he does his homework with minimal supervision, and he does it all the way through to completion. Any reservations we had about him going to an autism specialist school, probably within 2 weeks, were gone when we saw the improvement that he'd made.
Karina Tan runs a support group for parents of children with learning disabilities.
Very first thing usually is denial. There's no problem with my kids. So what we do is we tell them know how to encourage your kids to learn and how to learn more effectively. And then you learn how to communicate with other people, for example, the school.
Karina's son, Leon, has dyslexia.
He has this left-right reversal issue. So it means that he will have problem recognizing the Chinese words.
And writing them down.
Both because of his problem with the retrieval of information from his mind and with his fine motor skills.
His school helped out, including reading out exam questions for Leon.
For Chinese words, they have a lot of copyings to do, right? I recommended them to let me copy half of the word and then let my son put in the other half.
Karina also arranges after-school activities to improve his socializing skills, such as joining the Boy Scouts. Karina advises parents with SEN children to actively look for a school that really does cater to their needs.
It really depends on how willing the teachers themselves they want to learn about SEN. There are a lot of Band 1 schools who only want their kids to have good results in BSE. My son can never go into that kind of school.
And she sees integrated education as a good preparation for her son's future.
The future world is integrated. I don't want him to isolate himself. I want him to be part of the society like anyone.
Well, thank you for watching our show. It will be re-aired on Monday and Saturday, as well as on tvb.com. Until next time, from the Pearl Report team, good night, good luck, and good health.